Children, today in this video you will learn about certain parts of the digestive system, that is, the small intestine, functions of the liver and the pancreas, and what happens to the food inside the small intestine. Let us study about it in details. The small intestine. The small intestine is a long coiled tube of about 7 meters. The food remains in the small intestine for about 3 to 5 hours for digestion and absorption. So, you can imagine that this long coiled structure is present inside your body. And the food, it takes time to pass through these coiled structures of the small intestine. And as such, digestion and absorption takes place. The short upper U-shaped part of the small intestine, which continues from the stomach, is called the duodenum. As you can see over here, this is your stomach, and now this stomach is entering or starting point of the small intestine is forming a U-shaped structure. This is the first part of the small intestine known as the duodenum. This duodenum receives a common duct that brings secretions from the liver and the pancreas. That is, through a same opening, the liver and pancreas secrete their juices into the small intestine. Let us study about the liver. The liver is reddish brown in color and it is the largest gland in the body. The liver is situated on the right side of the body, below the chest region. This liver produces a greenish yellow fluid known as the bile. This bile is stored in the gallbladder, which is an organ found just below the liver. As you can understand from this figure, that this small green colored structure that you see over here is the gallbladder. This gallbladder stores bile, which is a fluid given out by the liver. Now the bile juice helps in breaking down of fats into tiny droplets, and this process is known as emulsification. So the first part of digestion is taking place in the duodenum. That is, here the bile juice is breaking down the fats into tiny droplets, and this process is known as emulsification. The pancreas. The pancreas is a large whitish leaf-shaped gland situated below the stomach. As you can see over here, this is the pancreas. This part is the duodenum. Now, here the stomach is present. So just below the stomach, you will find the pancreas. The pancreas secrete pancreatic juice, which is poured into the duodenum through the pancreatic duct. Now, the pancreatic duct opens into the duodenum by an aperture which is common to that of the gallbladder. That is, the bile secreted by the liver is stored in the gallbladder. The opening of the gallbladder and the opening of the pancreatic duct is the same in the duodenum, so that both the pancreatic juice and the bile can enter into the small intestine. Pancreatic juice contains enzymes, namely amylase, trypsin, and lipase. This helps in the digestion of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats respectively. Amylase acts on starch, converting it into maltose. Starch is a higher form of carbohydrate. So the enzyme amylase acts on starch and converts it into a simpler form of carbohydrate, that is maltose. Trypsin is another enzyme which helps in converting proteins and peptones into peptides. Peptides are smaller forms of proteins and peptones. Lipase is also another enzyme which converts emulsified fats into fatty acids and glycerol. Now, you have seen that in the first part of the duodenum, emulsification of fats had taken place. Now, these emulsified fats are converted into fatty acids and glycerol, which are smaller molecules of the fats. So, the enzyme lipase helps in converting these emulsified fats into fatty acids and glycerol. The second part of the small intestine, which is just after the duodenum, is known as the jejunum. Here in jejunum, no digestion takes place. The semi-digested food, which enters the last part of the small intestine, called the ileum, is now absorbed here. Let us know about it in details. The ileum is also a long, narrow, coiled tube. The inner lining of the ileum contains the intestinal glands which produce intestinal juice. This juice contains enzymes like erepsin, maltase, sucrase, lactase, and lipase. As a result of the action of enzymes, food that is ingested through the mouth is now completely digested in the ileum. See the table over here. In this table, you can see the different forms of food is written over here. Peptides, that is a smaller form of protein, is acted upon by the enzyme erepsin and is converted into its simplest form, amino acids. So the peptides are acted upon by the enzyme erepsin to get amino acids. Maltose, a form of carbohydrate, is acted upon by the enzyme maltase to get the smallest form of carbohydrate, that is glucose. Sucrose, which is also a form of carbohydrate, is acted upon by the enzyme sucrase to get glucose and fructose. Lactose, another form of carbohydrate, is acted upon by lactase to get glucose and galactose. And the emulsified fats are acted upon by an enzyme lipase to get fatty acids and glycerol. As a result of the action of enzymes, food that is ingested through the mouth is now completely digested in the ileum. So, you can see that the carbohydrates are converted into glucose, proteins are converted into amino acids, the fats are converted into fatty acids and glycerol. The last part of the small intestine, the function, is that the absorption of digested food which takes place in the small intestine. The inner lining of the small intestine contains a large number of tiny finger-like projections called the villi. The villi greatly increases the inner surface area for absorption of the digested food. So, you can see that finger-like projections are present inside the small intestine. These finger-like projections, they increase the surface area for the absorption of the food. Each villus, that is each part of this villi, has a network of small and thin blood vessels close to its surface so that the absorption of amino acids and glucose can take place. That is, the blood vessels which are present in the villus helps in absorbing the amino acids and glucose and pass them into the blood system, whereas the fatty acids pass out into special tubes called the lymph vessels. The vitamins and minerals are directly absorbed through the walls of the intestine. So, the ileum of the small intestine serves the function both for the digestion and the absorption of the digested food. Children, we will study about the large intestine and assimilation of food in our next video.